This video is sponsored by the book summary app, Blinkist. Use the link in the description to receive 1 free week and 25% off a premium membership. We've all experienced nostalgia before, that feeling of sentimentality, longing, or affection for our past. It is a poignant experience that intimates the passing of time and reminds us of who we once were, but will never be again. When looking back, sometimes even just a year, it can often feel like we are observing a person and life that is completely different. A stranger experiencing an almost unrecognizable life and sense of self. But of course, this person was us, and of course, we are also us right now. But then, who are we? What makes us who we are? What does our present self have in common with our past self of 10 years ago? What will it have in common with our future self in 10 more years? Is there anything that truly persists through it all that makes and keeps us who we are? What is it, if there is? For starters, when trying to pin down what makes us who we are, we might consider our body. But in truth, most of us don't really find our body to be the primary source of our sense of self. For example, if you lost all your limbs, it is fair to assume that you would still feel and claim to be you. Even taken to the extreme, if somehow you lost your whole body, but could still live and experience the world from within your head, carried around in a jar or placed on some sort of android, although a strange and different life, you would likely still feel and claim that you are you. Not only that, but regardless of what you claim, essentially all the cells that comprise your body are replaced anew every 10 years or so. So if you identify yourself with the consistency of your body is never really physically the same anyway. And of course, throughout your life, your body's appearance changes completely as well. Your 8-year-old self looks essentially nothing like your 30-year-old self, but you almost certainly would never claim that one is more or less you. And of course, the circumstances of your life essentially change completely as well. Even if you live in the same place changes all the time. And so, there is nothing really outside of your body that can be identified with either. Instead of the body or our circumstances, most of us identify primarily with our brain. But what part of the brain is us? The brain is an immensely complex organ with tons of components and functions, and most of us wouldn't identify with much of it. We likely don't feel like we are the parts of the brain involved with automatic, unconscious functions and responses, the regulation and adjustment of the breath and heart and balance and all the other things that happen beneath our direct control and awareness. We might say then that we are the parts of our brain related to our tastes and preferences. But what if this part of your brain was altered? Would you no longer be you? If yes, doesn't this happen all the time throughout life in general? Are we not constantly changing our tastes and preferences across our lifetime? What about if the parts of our brain affecting how we talk and act changed? What if we lost or gained sets of skills? Again, don't these things occur all throughout life as well? How about the way in which we respond to things, our character and temperament and humor and so on? Again, arguably, this changes continually as well. Imagine what you liked, what you were good at, what you cared about, how you talked, and how your temperament was 15 years ago. Are these things at all similar in any real substantial way to you now? Probably no more than a distant friend at best. And so, if we, as a central and consistent thing, are not our bodies, not our brain's unconscious functions, not our tastes and preferences, not our technical capacities, and not our character, who or what are we? Perhaps the most fundamental thing that makes us feel like the same person across our lifetime is our memory. This seems to be the most difficult thing to imagine we would still be ourselves if we lost it. But what does that mean for people who have extreme long-term memory loss, like certain individuals with Alzheimer's disease? Are they no longer themselves? Do they no longer have a self? If so, who are they? Are they somehow nobody? If so, who is it that we are interacting with when we interact with them? Perhaps they are nobody in the way we typically think of somebody, but perhaps so are you. In truth, for all of us, if we look into our body and mind to try to find precisely and concretely who or what we are, that central persistent something that makes us, we find this strange nobodiness. In the words of Fernando Pessoa, I've changed at every moment. I always feel like a stranger. I've never seen or found myself. I am my own landscape. I watch myself journey, various, mobile, and alone. Here where I am, I can't feel myself. That's why I read as a stranger, my being as if it were pages, not knowing what will come, and forgetting what is past. Rereading, I wonder, was that me? From a neuroscientific understanding, this notion of there not being a defined self is validated by the fact that there is no part of the brain where everything comes together for an ego or self to form, or for a sort of center stage where thoughts are displayed, perceived, and evaluated. Consciousness is a cascade of neurophysiology, and everything is distributed everywhere, said modern neuroscientist and philosopher Sam Harris. The self appears merely to be a particular kind of illusion. It is not that we don't have a self, but that the self is just not how it feels or appears to us. As opposed to a singular, central, unitary thing that is carried forward from each moment to the next, it is a process, an emergent phenomenon of a non-central, inconsistent progression and unfolding of everything we knowingly and unknowingly interact with. A seeming feedback loop takes place between the world, our body, and our mind, and out of which the experience of self emerges. In other words, the self is merely an experience of a process, and as long as we persist through time, there is nothing to be found that is constant that persists through us. It is a common thing to say and believe that it is important to be yourself in life. When we aren't, it can feel ashaming and dissatisfying. When we notice others aren't, we can feel a discomfort, distrust, or an unappealing nature to their company. Being ourselves is in fact an important and worthy goal, if not perhaps one of the worthiest goals in human existence. But the problem is, if the self is an illusion, how do we be it? Perhaps being yourself doesn't require knowing yourself in any ultimate sense. Perhaps it isn't even about being who you think you are. It isn't a matter of being consistent or doing what you or other people expect you to do based on what you've done or who you've been. Rather, it is doing and being what you feel is an honest embodiment of what you think and want right now. A foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds, adored by little statesmen and philosophers and divines. With consistency, a great soul has simply nothing to do. He may as well concern himself with the shadow on the wall. Speak what you think now in hard words, and tomorrow, speak what tomorrow thinks in hard words again, though it contradict everything you said today. Ah, so you shall be sure to be misunderstood. To be great is to be misunderstood, wrote Ralph Waldo Emerson. Being who you are is being who you become, and then being who you become, and then being who you become, over and over. Being yourself is a continual process of being someone else. In the end, there is nothing to find or be, but a process of finding and being. These ideas and questions echo throughout human history across the globe, from modern neuroscience back to the Buddha, Advaita Vedanta of Hinduism, ancient Greek philosophers like Heraclitus and Plato, and everywhere and everyone in between. For as long as people have known they are someone, we have struggled to pin down who that someone is. Of course, because of the ambiguous and unbreachable nature of selfhood, all of this is just theory and one perspective. And as the only person who will ever experience the self and perspective that is you, you are free to think of yourself in any way you'd like. Ultimately, possessing this experience of self is perhaps the most strange, disorienting, and beautiful thing unique to the human experience. To feel like and be aware of a self compels us to try to define it. It implicates attachment to it and the things it attaches to. It provides us with a front row seat to the rising and falling action of the strange show of the universe that ultimately ends with a scene that kills its audience. It is part tragic play and part magic show that strikes divinity into even the most secular of individuals. We are each given this gift of selfhood, an illusory paradoxical experience of something and nothing, of experiencer and experiences, the conjunction of both, a run-on sentence always being added to with an and. And perhaps all we can and should try to do is make the sentence as beautiful as we can, rich with the cadence of poetry, the diversity of a complete story, and the punctuation of an exclamative. If you're interested in further exploring the current version of yourself, consider checking out my guided journal, designed to help you understand and evolve the ever-changing thing that is you. Something that's extremely fascinating to explore is the way in which largely disconnected cultures, times in history, and disciplines of thinking have arrived at technically similar conclusions, both about the self and many other theoretical topics. Traditionally, it would be extremely time-consuming to explore something as vast as this, but this video's sponsor, Blinkist, makes it easier than ever to engage and study from a wide range of books in a fraction of the time. Blinkist allows the average person to engage in roughly 30 times the amount of books in the same amount of time by taking the best nonfiction books, pulling out the key takeaways, and forming them into 15-minute text and audio summaries. This means, on Blinkist, you can explore how Buddhism understands and defines the self through a title like Buddhism Plain and Simple by Steve Hagen, how neuroscientists understand the self through the title The Brain by David Eagleman, and how it might be explored in Western philosophy through Meditations on First Philosophy by René Descartes, all allowing you to understand how these various disciplines and theories overlap and explore the mind, the self, and reality, all in less than 45 minutes. Blinkist has over 5,000 titles in 27 categories, as well as summaries of popular podcasts and a wide selection of audiobooks, meaning there's essentially something for everyone in every form. Use the link in the description and you'll receive 1 free week of unlimited access, as well as 25% off a premium membership. The free 7-day trial can be canceled at any time within the trial period. And of course, thank you so much for watching in general, and see you next video.